I never thought I'd see my father cry. Not like this. Not with rage contorting his face, as he waved the bank statement in the air, his hands shaking. The statement that showed their retirement account, nearly $2 million, had been drained 3 days ago. How could you do this to us, Amanda? His voice cracked. Your own parents. We were gathered in the living room of my childhood home, the same room where Mom had taught me piano, where Dad had helped me with math homework, where family photos still lined the walls in neat chronological order. Now it felt like a courtroom, and I was on trial. My brother James stood by the fireplace, arms crossed, jaw set in that self-righteous way I'd seen too often lately. My sister Catherine paced behind Dad's armchair, occasionally pausing to shoot venomous glares my way. Even my youngest brother Michael, usually the peacemaker, sat in stony silence. Well, Catherine demanded, nothing to say for yourself? I looked around at their faces, faces I'd known all my life, faces now twisted with accusation and betrayal. 3 months ago, we'd all sat in the same room celebrating Dad's retirement. Now they thought I'd stolen everything he'd worked for. Actually, I said quietly, reaching for my phone, I have something you all need to hear. More lies, James scoffed. The bank records are clear, Amanda. The transfer came from your IP address, using your old login credentials. Dad trusted you with emergency access, and this is how you repay him. I held up my hand. Just listen. I'd pressed play, and suddenly different voices filled the room. Their voices recorded 2 weeks ago in this very house when they thought I was out of town. It's perfect. Catherine's voice crackled through the speaker. Amanda's credentials are still in the system. Once the money's gone, all evidence will point to her. But why Amanda? Michael's voice, uncertain. She's always been the responsible one. Exactly. James cut in. That's why no one will question it when the truth comes out about her gambling addiction. I still don't like it. Michael again. Framing our own sister. Look, Catherine's voice hardened. Dad's pension isn't enough. The medical bills are piling up. This is the only way to access the money before it's all gone to Mom's treatments. Amanda will take the fall. We'll find most of the money in an offshore account, play the heroes, and Dad will never know we were behind it. The recording ended. The silence that followed was deafening. Dad's hands had stopped shaking. Now they were completely still. The bank statement crumpled in his grip. Catherine had frozen mid-pace, her designer heels rooted to the carpet. James's face had drained of all color. There's more, I said into the silence. Would you like to hear the part where you discussed faking documents about my supposed gambling debts? Or the call with your friend at the bank who helped you trace the IP address to my home office? You recorded us? Catherine's voice was barely a whisper. No, I replied. Your own security system did. The one you insisted on installing last month. It has excellent audio capability and an interesting cloud backup feature. I turned to Dad, feeling the weight of his gaze. I discovered their plan last week. That's why I've been tracking all account activity. When I saw the transfer this morning, I knew they'd finally done it. But the money is still gone, Dad said slowly. I pulled an envelope from my bag. No, it's not. The moment I saw the transfer, I called the fraud department. They froze the account. I handed him a document. This is the paperwork showing the funds being returned. It should be back in your account by morning. Michael had started to cry silently. James was gripping the mantel so hard I thought his fingers might break. And Catherine looked like her entire world was collapsing. Why? Dad's voice was hollow. My own children. Mom's experimental treatment costs more than insurance will cover, I said quietly. They thought this was the only way to get the money without telling you how bad her condition really is. Dad's head snapped up. What about her condition? Catherine made a small, choked sound. James swore under his breath. Even Michael looked away. The cancer's back, Dad, I said gently. It's spread. Mom didn't want you to know, because you just retired. She's been hiding the symptoms, but she needs more aggressive treatment. Soon. The bank statement finally fell from Dad's hands, drifting to the floor like a dead leaf. Helen. He whispered Mom's name like a prayer. That's why I've been coming over so much, I continued, helping her cover it up, taking her to appointments while telling you we were going shopping. But last week, when I overheard their plan, I gestured to my siblings. I knew I had to stop them. This wasn't the way. So what? Catherine suddenly snarled. You're the hero now. The perfect daughter? At least we were trying to do something. By committing fraud, I stood up slowly. By framing me? By betraying Dad's trust and risking his freedom with fake offshore accounts. I had a plan, she insisted, but her voice wavered. No, I cut her off. You had desperation and greed. A plan would have been coming to me 3 months ago when you first found out about Mom. A plan would have been working together, legally, to help our parents. What do you mean? Dad asked. I pulled out another envelope. My company's been doing well. Very well. I've been trying to tell you all for months, but no one ever wanted to hear about my boring tech job. That bonus I got last quarter, it wasn't $50,000 like I told you. It was $500,000. More silence. More stares. I've already spoken with Mom's oncologist. I continued. My insurance can cover her as a dependent. The treatment she needs, it's approved. All of it. I tried to tell her last week, but she was too afraid of worrying you, Dad. Catherine's legs seemed to give out. She sank into the nearest chair. Why didn't you say something sooner? Would you have listened? I asked quietly. When have any of you ever listened to me about my work, my life, my success? It was easier to believe I was still the quiet bookworm who needed looking after. Easier to think you could frame me, because who would believe I had anything to lose? The sound of a car pulling into the driveway cut through the tension. Mom was back from her bridge club, which I knew had really been a doctor's appointment. So what happens now? James finally spoke, his voice rough. I looked at each of them in turn. That depends on Dad. I have evidence of attempted fraud, conspiracy, and bank access violations. The police would be very interested. You'd send your own siblings to jail, Catherine whispered. You were willing to send me, I reminded her. But no, I stopped the transfer in time. No actual theft occurred. If I turned to Dad, you want to press charges, that's your choice. But right now, I think Mom needs to know we all know the truth. About everything. The front door opened. Mom's footsteps in the hall. Her voice calling out a cheerful greeting that seemed to echo in the heavy silence. One more thing, I said, as her footsteps drew closer. The treatment starts Monday. I've already arranged medical leave from her teaching job. And Dad, I met his tear-filled eyes. Your retirement fund is safe. But maybe it's time to retire from keeping secrets in this family. Mom appeared in the doorway, her scarf arranged carefully to hide the weight loss none of us were supposed to notice. She froze, taking in the scene before her. Dad clutching forms, Catherine crumpled in a chair, James pale as a ghost, Michael wiping tears, and me. me finally standing in my truth. "Helen," Dad said softly, standing up. "We need to talk." The sun was setting outside, casting long shadows through the windows. In a few hours, everything would change. Truths would be spoken. Plans would be made. A family built on appearances would have to learn to be real. But for now, in this moment, I watched my mother's face as understanding dawned. Not just about her secret being revealed, but about how far her children had been willing to go. Some to help her, others to exploit her illness, and me, to protect not just our parents, but the very essence of what family should mean. The recording still sat on my phone, proof of betrayal and desperation. But maybe, just maybe, it could also become the catalyst for something else. Healing, honesty, and the kind of love that doesn't need schemes or secrets to survive. As Mom sank into Dad's waiting arms, I saw Catherine reach for her own phone, probably to call her lawyer. James started making excuses about needing to leave. But Michael met my eyes and mouthed 2 words: "I'm sorry." It wasn't over. The aftermath of this day would ripple through our family for years to come. But at least now we were dealing with truth, not shadows. And sometimes, that's where healing begins. The morning after our family's darkest secrets spilled out, I sat in my office staring at emails I couldn't focus on. My phone hadn't stopped buzzing since dawn. Mostly messages from Michael, a few terse texts from Dad about Mom's first oncology appointment, and dozens of missed calls from Catherine that I wasn't ready to answer. James hadn't tried to contact me at all, but his wife Rebecca had sent a single message. "He's meeting with his lawyer. Be prepared." I already was. At 9:47, my assistant buzzed. "Miss Sullivan, your brother Michael is here." I found him pacing my reception area, looking like he hadn't slept. When he saw me, his eyes filled with tears. "I should have told you," he blurted out. "When they first suggested it, I should have warned you." I led him into my office, noting how his eyes widened at the view of the city skyline. Like Catherine and James, he'd never bothered to visit my workplace before. "Nice office," he said weakly. "Guess you really have done well for yourself." "Sit down, Michael," I said, gesturing to the leather chairs by the window. "Tell me everything." What poured out over the next hour was worse than I'd imagined. Catherine's gambling debts, hidden from her surgeon husband. James's failing law practice, crushed under malpractice suits he'd never mentioned. They'd been desperate long before Mom's cancer returned. They thought Dad's retirement fund was the answer. Michael's voice cracked. "Using your credentials, making it look like you'd stolen it. Catherine said she could make it trace back to offshore accounts she controlled. And you agreed to help them?" I kept my voice neutral. He buried his face in his hands. I didn't know what else to do. "Mom needs the treatment. And they said you wouldn't help even if we asked. That you'd become cold, focused only on your career. Did you ever think to actually ask me?" "We barely know you anymore, Amanda." He looked up. "You missed the last 3 family Christmas parties. You're always working, always traveling." Catherine said. I interrupted softly. "Did you ever think Catherine might be wrong?" Before he could answer, my phone buzzed. Dad's message made my heart stop. Mom collapsed. "We're at Memorial Hospital. Come now." The next few hours were a blur of hospital corridors and medical terms. Mom's oncologist explained that the cancer had spread more aggressively than they'd thought. She needed to start treatment immediately. I found Dad in the hospital chapel, looking older than I'd ever seen him. "I should have known," he whispered as I sat beside him. "All those bridge club meetings. The weight loss she blamed on a new diet. She was trying to protect you. And our children? His voice hardened. Were they trying to protect me too when they planned to steal my life savings? I took his hand. They were scared and desperate. But Dad, what they did, trying to frame me? That wasn't about Mom's treatment. That was about their own problems. As if on cue, my phone lit up with an email from James's lawyer, threatening legal action for defamation and illegal recording. I almost laughed. He still thinks he can bully his way out of this. Dad read the email over my shoulder, and something in him seemed to break. What happened to our family, Amanda? When did we become people who scheme and betray each other? Before I could answer, Catherine appeared in the chapel doorway. She looked terrible. Designer clothes wrinkled, makeup smeared. The doctor needs signatures for Mom's treatment, she said, not meeting our eyes. Then, barely audible, I can't afford to help with the payments anymore. Thomas found out about the gambling debts. Your brother James just threatened to sue me, I told her. Still think framing me was your best option. She flinched. I never thought. We assumed you were just a mid-level programmer. How were we supposed to know you'd become so successful? You could have asked, I said simply. Any time in the last 5 years. But you were all too busy believing I was still the little sister who needed protecting. Or in your case, exploiting. That's not fair. No, Dad cut in, his voice like steel. What's not fair is discovering my children were willing to destroy their sister to cover up their own mistakes. What's not fair is your mother fighting cancer alone, because we were all too wrapped up in appearances to see her suffering. Catherine started to cry. Not her usual elegant tears, but ugly, racking sobs that echoed in the small chapel. Thomas wants a divorce, she choked out. James is being disbarred. Michael's wife left him last night. Everything's falling apart. No, I stood up. Everything's finally coming into focus. The lies are falling apart. There's a difference. Just then, my phone buzzed again. A text from my assistant. FBI agents here asking about Catherine Sullivan and James Sullivan. Possible fraud investigation. I showed the message to Dad. He read it, closed his eyes for a moment, then looked at Catherine. Your sister stopped you from stealing my retirement fund, he said quietly. But what else have you done? What other schemes are out there, waiting to explode? Catherine's sobs turned to hiccups. James said he could fix everything. Use the retirement money to pay off our debts, then find most of it in Amanda's fake accounts. We'd be heroes, and she'd be in jail, but he said she deserved it for abandoning the family. I never abandoned anyone, I said sharply. I'd built something for myself. There's a difference. Dad stood up slowly. Catherine, go tell your mother you love her. Then go home and call a lawyer. A real one, not your brother, Amanda. The FBI can wait one day, I said, understanding what he wasn't asking. Mom's treatment starts tomorrow. That's what matters right now. As Catherine stumbled out of the chapel, Dad turned to me. Your mother and I, we failed somewhere. Raised children who could turn on each other like this. No, I touched his shoulder. You raised children who made their own choices. James chose arrogance. Catherine chose deception. Michael chose weakness. And I chose to stand alone, rather than be part of their schemes. And now, what do we choose now? I thought about the recording still on my phone, about James's threats and Catherine's tears, about Michael's remorse and Mom's quiet strength. Now we choose truth, I said, no matter how much it hurts. The next few weeks were a storm of lawyers, federal agents, and family therapy sessions. James was disbarred for multiple ethics violations beyond just the attempted fraud. Catherine's gambling addiction came to light, along with a trail of financial destruction that led to her divorce. Michael's wife came back, but their relationship was fragile. And Mom, she fought. The treatments were brutal, but she faced them with a grace that humbled us all. I moved her and Dad temporarily into my guest house, closer to the hospital and away from the media circus, as James and Catherine's crimes made local headlines. One evening, as Mom rested between treatments, Dad found me on the back patio. "Your mother asked me something interesting today," he said, settling into a chair. "She asked if we'd ever told you how proud we were of your success." I kept my eyes on the sunset. "You didn't need to." "Yes, we did," he sighed. "Maybe if we paid more attention, valued your achievements instead of treating you like the little sister who needed protecting, maybe things would be different." "Maybe," I agreed, "but we can't change the past." "No, but we can learn from it." He pulled out an envelope. "I've updated my will. Everything goes into a trust that you'll manage. Not because you are the only one I trust with money now, but because you were the only one who never saw it as the most important thing." I thought about the recording that had started all this, about choices and consequences, about the difference between protecting family and enabling destruction. "James's sentencing is next week," I said quietly. "Catherine's rehabilitation program starts Monday. Michael's in therapy. Mom's numbers are improving. We're all finding our way back to some kind of truth." Dad reached over and took my hand. "Thank you for stopping them, not just from stealing the money, but from becoming people who could live with that kind of betrayal." I squeezed his hand, remembering the little girl who once thought her family was perfect. We weren't perfect now, far from it, but maybe we were finally real. Inside, I could hear Mom's quiet laughter at something Michael was reading to her. The sound carried through the evening air like a reminder that even broken things can heal, given enough time and truth. The recording that had exposed everything was still on my phone, but I didn't need it anymore. Its purpose hadn't just been to stop a crime. It had been to shatter the mirrors we'd all been hiding behind, forcing us to finally see ourselves and each other clearly. As the sun set on another day of our new reality, I thought about family and forgiveness, about strength and redemption. The money had never been the real issue. It had just been the catalyst that revealed who we truly were, and more importantly, who we could choose to become. Tomorrow would bring more challenges, more healing, more choices. But for now, in this moment, we were finally facing our truths together. And sometimes, that's the greatest victory of all. I never thought I'd see my father cry. Not like this. Not with rage contorting his face, as he waved the bank statement in the air, his hands shaking. The statement that showed their retirement account, nearly $2 million, had been drained 3 days ago. "How could you do this to us, Amanda?" His voice cracked. "Your own parents." We were gathered in the living room of my childhood home, the same room where Mom had taught me piano, where Dad had helped me with math homework, where family photos still lined the walls in neat chronological order. Now it felt like a courtroom, and I was on trial. My brother James stood by the fireplace, arms crossed, jaw set in that self-righteous way I'd seen too often lately. My sister Catherine paced behind Dad's armchair, occasionally pausing to shoot venomous glares my way. Even my youngest brother Michael, usually the peacemaker, sat in stony silence. "Well," Catherine demanded, "nothing to say for yourself?" I looked around at their faces. Faces I'd known all my life. Faces now twisted with accusation and betrayal.